Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaden, and today I'm going to be telling you about all the books I read in October, starting with After We Burn, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. So after a classmate dies in the school fire, her classmates find out what her and others were doing there the night of. So the pages of the book made it look like it was burned itself, which I thought was a really cool concept. This book does deal with SA, which I didn't know until I started reading the book and saw the trigger warnings. It is a big part of the book and the plot, so if you are weary of that, just letting you know. I thought the SA plot was done respectfully, but I felt like the perpetrator had too much plot armor and protections against him. It felt almost comical, like nobody was taking these accusations seriously because of who the person's family was. And I read a book later this month that dealt with that, and people believe them. So it's like, okay, why is this person getting away with it with so much? I didn't like that. Everyone had seemed to have it out for Peyton, even though she was a victim too, and Oakley was a big part of that. The emails throughout I thought were really cool, and I liked the ending for everyone, especially Peyton. Thought that Eden's letter at the end wasn't necessary. I felt the book could have been a little bit better. I did audibly gasp a few times while reading, especially with what Oakley said and did to Peyton. The second book I read was Dominion, and I rated this one 4 stars. So this is a story of Emmanuel, aka Manny, aka Wonder Boy, during the summer, told through the perspective of his mother and his girlfriend. Based off the synopsis, I thought it was going to talk about the corruption of religion and how it messes with people, and it really didn't. I still enjoyed the book though. The story itself was told through sermon notes, flashbacks concerning Wonder Boy, and perspectives from his mom and his girlfriend. Book is short, and I finished it in only a few hours. I really liked the ending for Wonder Boy, but I really love the ending for Diamond. Good for her. Also liked the cover and what it represents as the story progresses. The third book I read was A Family Matter, and I rated this one 3 stars. So it's told through two perspectives, a dad and a daughter, in 2 different time periods with what happened to the mother. Book was hard for me to get into and was too slow. Book did have short chapters, which I enjoyed. I never really connected with Dawn, and then her and Hazel's relationship seemed very fast and not well developed for me. Plus, I didn't really like Heron, the dad, in the past. He didn't have a backbone and did what others around him told him to do rather than what he thought was best. I do find it interesting that if Dawn had cheated with another man, or if Heron had treated what they would have done to Dawn, wouldn't have been as cruel, and they wouldn't have shredded her in court or torn her to shreds in court. But because she's a girl and what she did, they just did that. So I didn't really like that. The fourth book I read was Lessons in Magic and Disaster, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. So after her wife died, Jamie's mom secluded herself. 7 years later, Jamie wants to regrow her relationship with her by teaching her magic. So this one had a really pretty cover. There's one ick I have with the cover is that the author's name covers up most of the book itself, like the top part, and then at the bottom is the actual title of the book. So I would have liked if those were switched and the author's name was smaller, because it took up most of the book cover, and I just didn't like that. It made it seem like the author's name was the name of the book and that the actual title of the book was like authors, because usually those are how it is. I didn't really like that. It was a good read, but anything concerning Emily or the 18th century lit, I zoned out. Princess and the Player, and May and Serena's chapters were my favorite, especially the latter. Also, there were some fourth wall breaks, which I didn't really like and turned me off while reading. Wish there was more of an explanation of the magic, and I'm glad some things didn't turn out that they would, especially with Serena and Jamie. After that, I read Say a Little Prayer, and I rated this one 4 stars. So Riley gets sent to a Christian camp after she slapped a classmate after she made awful remarks about her sister. Now Riley is going to commit the 7 deadly sins in 7 days she's there. So book is very cute. I think I saw this book originally on TikTok. I saw it somewhere before I saw it, my local library, and I'm like, I have to read it. The title of the book itself reminded me of the Glee cover, Say a Little Prayer for You. And the person on the cover reminded me of Moana's voice actor. I didn't really like the third act conflict with Riley and Julia at the end, but it made sense with Julia. I liked how Pastor Young didn't feel cartoony but felt real, because there are actual people and pastors like that with their teachings. Overall, fun read. I also liked the chapter titles in this book. They remind me of Percy Jackson because they both have like funny chapter titles, and I found that really amusing in this book. After that, I read The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes, and I rated this one 5 stars. So Tony gets recruited to be the new guitarist in the Lilies when she finds out the manager is the guy who abandoned her 8 years prior. So I liked this book a lot more than I thought I would. Backstories for both Nia, aka Tony, and Seb Sebastian in the beginning chapters were well done and gave a lot more understanding to the characters. The toxic relationships and story were well done, especially with Candy and Seb and Tony and her mother. I thought there was going to be a third act breakup. Glad there wasn't, but it did lead to a sex scene, which did make me squeal because of something that Seb said, which I felt was well deserved compared to the sex scene beforehand. I also liked the Singing in the Rain reference that they used in this book for Tony and Candy. I thought that was clever. Thought this book was really fun. There is a sequel to this book that I'm somewhat interested in reading in the future, but I don't know for sure if I'm going to read it because I don't think my library has it. After that, I read Silent Sister, and I rated that one 4 stars. So after her sister died in the class trip they were on, Grace has to figure out what happened to her, even though she has no memory of that week they were at the camp. So book sucked me in and finished in only a few hours. Book switches from Maddie's POV, her sister in the past, and Grace's POV in the future, and I felt like Maddie played the victim card a lot. That it became annoying. Even she became annoying to me, but I still felt sympathetic towards her. The twist on how Maddie died was kind of predictable, and I thought Jade's reasoning for what she did was clunky. Overall, I did enjoy this book a lot. After that, I read Wendy's Ever After, and I rated this one 3 stars. So after returning from Neverland years prior, Wendy goes back after following a man who looks oddly familiar and finds out that Neverland is in trouble. So it was an okay read, was a slow read for me to get into. That book was going to go one way to the story, but it went a completely different way. The reasoning why is a sort of seriously kind of moment. Beginning of each chapter began with a quote from the OG Peter Pan that really didn't add anything for me. There is Wendy says something in this book like her and Liam are talking about which is better, pies and cakes. And somebody says pies to cakes, and he tells her why his reasoning is this. And she's like, oh, wow, I've never been wrong before. And I'm like, girl, you were wrong before earlier in this book. What are you talking about? You've never been wrong before when you're talking about cakes and pies. You were wrong, in this instance. And later she's wrong again. It just rubbed me the wrong way. She's like, wow, I've never been wrong before. And it's you've been wrong before. What are you talking about? None of your life you've been wrong before? It's probably about the cakes and pie. It's about oh, she's wrong in that discussion. But it still rubbed me the wrong way. And I still didn't like that. And so it kind of ruined the rest of the book for me. Because I'm you're just kind of stupid. After that, I read An Inedible Fate. And I rated this one 5 stars as well. So after his drawing gets him into NYU, Evan sees the girl he drew but he hadn't met before. Now he's getting visions of her dying in 1911, so he has to figure out why and stop her from dying now. I really, really liked this book. Finished it in only a few hours. Cover is really pretty and felt heavy. I've felt books before and they never felt heavy before. This one felt heavy, and it wasn't even that big, long of a book, and it felt heavy. It does give Fallen vibes. I know I said that last month. Previous book was given Fallen vibes. This is Fallen vibes. I really liked Evan and really liked the chapters about his past selves with Mara. The why is a little iffy to me, but I like the ties and mentions to mythology, and it gave me vibes from season 5 of DC Legends of Tomorrow, and the sisters in the Disney villain series. One character I thought was underdeveloped with like the explanation of why everything's happening. I did have low expectations for this book, but I had so much fun. I couldn't put it down. It was that good. I enjoyed this book that much. After that, I read The Husbands, and I rated that one 3 stars. So when Nora and her husband, Hayden, are house hunting, they end up in a neighborhood where the husbands do all the household chores and are somewhat semi-submissive to their wives. Synopsis made it seem like it was going to be like a reverse Stepford Wives situation. But it really wasn't. Had some of the vibes, but it really wasn't enough. Plus, the explanation of why everything happened, I zoned out. Ended up being disappointed by it. I really enjoyed the blogs and comments at the end of some of the chapters. It brought out the theme of the book and what women go through as wives and mothers, with all that mental, physical, emotional labor. It was an okay read, and then like the ending of it couldn't get me to give it a higher rating. I just didn't like it, and it kind of was like somewhat ambiguous, but not really, and I just didn't click with it, if that makes sense. Next book I read was The Locked Ward, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. So Georgia is sent to a psych ward after being accused of murdering her adopted sister. Now she has to ask her twin that she didn't even know she had a month ago to find out what really happened. So book sucked me in the first page, and I finished it in only a few hours. Really enjoyed the POV chapters of each twin, especially with the use of first and third person, so that also helped knowing each twin better, so you didn't get confused about which twin was which. Setting of the psych ward reminded me of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest movie, even though I've read the book. There were lots of twists and turns, and I had a lot of fun reading this book. I also liked how both twins were unreliable narrators, and you didn't know who to trust. They were also short chapters as well. After that, I read With Love, Cold World, and I rated this one 3.75 stars. So Asa and Lauren are co-workers at Cold World, a winter wonderland in Florida, where they are told to come up with ideas to increase revenue, but something else increases as well, how they feel for each other. So I felt like Asa was unnecessarily mean to Lauren and was an asshole, even though he's always liked her, but he's still an ass to her. I've read from this author before, and I even own one of her books, but I like this book better than the one I've read this month. Going back to Asa, there was one moment in the book where he made a comment towards her, and I didn't want to read more because it was such an awful comment, and I'm like, I don't want to read more because I don't like you. Like, you say you love this girl, like this girl forever, but you're such an ass to her. So, and you made this comment, so why would I want to root for you guys? There was also like the third act breakup, which I knew was coming based off how happy they were, and I was anticipating it. The synopsis of the book made it seem like they were going to be like enemies to lovers, but I felt like more they annoyed each other, and that's how they like fell in love, than enemies to lovers, which didn't really work for me. Also, there was a miscommunication trope. The Eddie and Lauren subplot at times felt like it was forgotten about and then brought up again when the author remembered. I don't see this couple staying together. I'm not rooting for them. Like, they get engaged at the end, and I'm like, this marriage is not gonna last. Because I did not like them at all. I thought Lauren's arc with worthiness and struggle with that was interesting, though, but I really did not like Asa in this book. He did not seem like a good partner, boyfriend, I do not see this couple staying together. After that, I read The Teacher, and I rated that one 4 stars. So after a teacher affair ruined her social life last year, Addie wants to start anew this year, but with the attention she's getting from Mr. Bennett, it might not. So I finished this book in less than a day, which I usually do with Frida McFadden books. One of the twists was kind of predictable based off Miss Bennett's age and Mr. Bennett's. The other twist just became a plot hole for me because how did Miss Bennett not see him all the time? And that one kind of made me feel ickier than the other one. Like, it made sense with what we know, and the cycle is going to continue because of that, but it just made me feel icky. It was a good solid read. One of the side characters, Kenzie, like, we understand later why she did what she did, but if you look back on it, she's an ass before all that to Addie. So why is she an asshole then? And then her behavior gets excused. That's not how that works. Also, the school has like a 5 hottest teachers list. No school has that, and that just seems oddly inappropriate. Like, no. After that, I read Burning Daylight, and I rated this one 4 stars. So this is a modern retelling of Romeo and Juliet. This is the same author as the Never After series. It has really cool stained edges. Let me show you the inside. Really cool like cover art. And like this really cool end page. Book was kind of slow to begin with, but I didn't know how to feel about Juliet. Book reminded me of Wretched from the same author, based off certain scenes and like the one night stand trope that I really like, and both of these books kind of fell in line with like, oh, we're two strangers, let's hook up, let's, one night stand it, we'll never see each other again. Oh, now we're both in this situation, now what are we gonna do? Kind of thing. I liked all the references to the OG story, plus names of other characters or other cool odds. I like the twist to the OG story beats, and there's the betrayer trope in this one like there are in her other books. I'm excited for the next book. Hope it's another retelling of a Shakespearean play, because I do like Shakespeare. I haven't read all of his plays, but I do like some of his plays. And I really liked this one and the depth that it gave its characters. Plus, it's like so pretty. Like, it's so pretty. After that, I read Road Trip with a Vampire, and I rated that one 4 stars as well. So, a vampire shows up at Zelda's place with amnesia, and they go on a road trip to Indiana to get back his memories. So this is the 3rd book in the My Vampire series, and this is my 2nd favorite. Book was very cute, and I enjoyed it a lot. There was the 3rd act breakup, which I didn't like, but I did like how the big resolution with the villain of the book wasn't solved in a stupid way like the other 2 books. Plus, okay, so this part kind of irritated me. So they live in California, and they have to go to Indiana, and they're like, oh, it's going to take 6 days. I have been on a similar trip, and I live in the Midwest, and I've had to go out to the West Coast, and it does not take 6 days. It takes like 3, and we stopped like the characters in this book stopped. Okay, it does not take 6 days unless you're like driving for like 5 hours a day. Okay, that part just irritated the hell out of me, and I'm like, it does not take you that long to drive from California to Indiana. It does not take 6 days. It just irritates me. I wish there were more sex scenes in this book rather than just being like glazed over or talked about in retrospect. I personally would have liked more like graphic sex scenes, but that's personally just me. After that, I read ZomRomCom, and I rated this one 2.5 stars. After almost being attacked by a zombie, Eddie and Gaston, aka Max, work together to stop the zombie outbreak. I had a lot of problems with this book, if you hadn't figured it out on my 2.5 rating. But the beginning of the book confused me, and I felt like Eddie and Max had no chemistry, so it wasn't believable that they were lovers, especially since they had like known each other for like 2 days. Like, they had been neighbors for 3 and they didn't really interact, and they're already falling for each other. It's been like 2 days. There was no chemistry between both of them. So when the first sex scene happened, it seemed out of nowhere for me. Like, they had just gotten out of like a soapy water, and he's cleaning her, and then that's when the first one appears. I'm like, this is not the appropriate time to be doing this. And so because they had no chemistry, when the other sex scenes happened too, I was like, can we wrap this up? I don't feel anything between you guys. Gaston, so Eddie, at times, because his name is Gaston, she sings the Gaston song from Beauty and the Beast. And so she'll make reference to that throughout the book, and those times did make me chuckle. Gaston at times seemed to fall in love with Eddie, very fast. Like he said, he saw her 3 years ago and he fell in love with her. But then he acts like an asshole towards her. And then the first half scene, he's like, my Eddie, my. And I'm like, dude, I just met you. I just found out a couple days ago, you're a vampire, okay? A, B, C, D, F, G. I'm not yours. I don't even know you. Why are you calling me my? Get away from me. There's also, a fake-out death scene in this book, halfway through the book, and I'm like, why are you doing this? What makes you think I'm going to believe that you're going to kill any of these characters? There's also a line about, soulmates. You have, the soulmate mark. Never gets mentioned again. And it's like, what was the point of bringing that up? This entire book felt like a slog to get through. An ending between Max and Eddie confused me, especially about the immortality thing. There's a second book in the series that I have no interest in reading because I didn't like these people. Why do I want to continue on with a different character? I don't care. The Expedition of the World was told very clunky, and one way they stop the zombies is they sing Honora the Explorer, her theme song, and it's supposed to be a riff of Dora the Explorer, but Honora the Explorer is French, and it's just so stupid. This book is so stupid. I hated it. I'm fine. After that, I read Bunny, and I rated this one 3 stars. So Sam gets invited to join Bunny, which is this clique of 4 girls that call each other Bunny. Where they also turn bunnies into humans. I decided to read it based off the synopsis of the second book. So I saw the second book and I'm like, okay, I need to read the first one first. I don't want to read the second one based off how I feel about this one. The writing style of the book I didn't like, so it's hard for me to get into. The plot starts immediately. There's not really an explanation of the magic. Supposedly that gets explored more in the sequel, which I'm not going to read. I like the Frankenstein elements of Max and the Darlings, especially the similarities and how Max feels about certain things are the same way that Sam feels about certain things. Ava at times felt forgotten about, and I would have liked a better understanding of what actually happened to her at the end. I know what happened to her, but I would like more of a clear-cut, this is what happened. All the bunnies blended together for me, and Ava, when she's in the book, how she's described reminded me of Lydia from Beetlejuice. This book could have been better, especially with a different writing style. I just couldn't connect with this one. After that, I read If We Survive This, and I rated this one 3.75 stars. So Flora and her brother Kane decide to go to their family's cabin after hearing their father's message through the radio during a zombie outbreak. I read a lot of zombie books. The cover of the book gives 80s Final Girl vibes. I like the explanation of OCD and anxiety during the outbreak, in which I figure I would have the latter. I already have anxiety, but during a zombie apocalypse that would have been ramped up 1,000%. I really enjoyed the story and the queer relationships between the characters. The Trevor subplot came out of nowhere, felt cliche, and then ended really abruptly. Especially his end. It was oh, okay. The last few pages kind of confused me, and I didn't know for sure what happened. Either instance, there was build-up for it, but I would have liked more of a clear-cut answer, especially for this character. And depending on what the correct answer is, I don't know if it would have worked correctly or not, if that makes sense. And then the last book I read was If Looks Could Kill, and I also rated this one 3.75 stars. So 2 Salvation Army girls get mixed up with Jack the Ripper and Medusa in 1888 New York. So I was really excited for this book because I love mythology, and I thought, oh, the mix of Jack the Ripper is going to work really, really well. No, it didn't fully mix for me. I finished it in less than a day. This book had a lot of different POVs, which I'm not really a fan of, but I thought this book did it really well. The Medusa elements I felt could have been brought in sooner. Character decisions didn't make sense at times, or random side characters you forgot about would just like show up and you're like, who are you again? The setting and backdrop of the story was really cool, and I thought it worked really well with the story being told. I liked Jack's motivations for his killings, and I liked what happened to him at the end. The Medusa, who becomes our Medusa, or who is our Medusa, was a seriously kind of thing. Because it felt like more like a side character than a main character, but it did work really well for the story and for the character overall. It was just like a decent read. So those are all the books I read in October. If you have any recommendations for November, or if you read any of these books, let me know down below what you thought about it. Otherwise, I will see you next month. Bye!